The old freighter had been my father's pride, a colossal vessel once gliding through star systems, its hull echoing with the sounds of commerce and camaraderie. Now, it lay dormant, a relic on the fringe of the Garnet system, its only visits from windswept sands and the occasional plunder. Yet here I stood, at its entrance, the metallic taste of nostalgia and decay filling my lungs. I needed a gyroscope. A simple part, yet crucial for the patchwork ship I was cobbling together from remnants of past voyages. The market prices were exorbitant, pushing me to scavenge from what had once been a second home. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the rusted gangways, I hesitated. It wasn't just metal and memories inside. It was a burial site of my past life, each step stirring ghosts whispering of better times. The interior was as I remembered, though more forlorn. Debris littered the corridors, panels hung open with wires spilling out like entrails. My flashlight's beam danced over forgotten photos and scattered tools, creating more shadows than it dispelled. The silence was oppressive, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that had once filled these spaces. Every sound I made seemed sacrilegious in the quiet monument. As I navigated toward the engineering bay, my footsteps muffled by the thick dust, a sudden noise froze me in my tracks. It was a sharp, scrambling sound, like panicked animals clawing at the bulkheads. I wasn't alone. My heart raced. Pirates? Scavengers? Or worse, a thought I hadn't considered until that chilling moment. I approached cautiously, the beam of my flashlight slicing through the darkness ahead. The engineering bay loomed before me, its door slightly ajar. I nudged it open, and the sound escalated, a visceral, high-pitched keening that was unmistakably not human. Inside, cowered behind a toppled console, was the source of the disturbance. An alien, its form slight and quivering, its skin iridescent under the beam of my light. Its eyes, wide and luminescent, watched me with a mixture of fear and defiance. The creature was holding something tightly against its chest, a bundle of what appeared to be personal belongings, wrapped in a shimmering fabric. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you," I whispered, lowering my flashlight to appear less threatening. The alien's breathing was erratic, its chest rising and falling rapidly as it assessed my sincerity. "Why are you here?" It spoke suddenly, its voice melodic yet tinged with undeniable anxiety. The English was broken, accented by the musical lilt of its native tongue. I needed a part. A gyroscope. I didn't know anyone was here, I swear. I thought the ship was abandoned, I explained slowly, deliberately keeping my movements minimal to avoid startling it further. The alien's eyes flickered around the room, as if looking for an escape route, then settled back on me. I thought this would be a safe place. Few come here. Fewer care to explore. "What's your name?" I asked gently, trying to bridge the gulf of fear between us. "Saley," it responded, its posture relaxing ever so slightly. "I've been here for months. Hiding. Surviving. Why here? Why this ship?" My curiosity piqued, mixed with a poignant sting. This ship was a sanctuary for lost souls, it seemed. "It's far from the trade routes, and your people do not favor old ghosts and forgotten tales," Saley said, almost with a hint of humor. We talked more, the conversation hesitant but growing in warmth. Saley had fled from a conflict, a war of unimaginable cruelty that had left its people scattered across the stars like dust. I listened, each word painting a portrait of loss and resilience, of a life interrupted by the chaos of the galaxy. As the night wore on, the initial boundaries imposed by fear and surprise melted away. We shared stories, the ship a silent witness to a budding camaraderie. The gyroscope lay forgotten, its necessity overshadowed by the compelling story of the alien who called my father's ship home. Our makeshift kinship was fragile, bound by shared isolation and a mutual understanding of loss. Yet, as I made my way back to the entrance, promising Saley I would return, I couldn't help but feel that the ship hadn't been as abandoned as I had thought. It had been waiting for us, a beacon for the lost, ready to offer shelter once more. The following morning, as the first rays of dawn breached the horizon, I found myself drawn back to the freighter. Overnight, thoughts of Saley had woven deeply into my mind, mingling with a resolve to aid her however I could. With a thermos of coffee and 2 makeshift sandwiches, I returned, stepping into the ship with a familiarity that belied the short time I'd known of her hidden inhabitant. Sally was waiting, her figure more composed than the night before, though the weariness in her eyes spoke of sleepless nights and relentless worries. She accepted the food with a nod of gratitude, her earlier suspicion tempered by an emerging trust. "Did you sleep?" I ventured, observing her as she nibbled cautiously at the sandwich. "Not much," she replied, her voice low. "I'm always listening for new dangers." As we ate, I noticed the cluttered surroundings anew, seeing potential rather than decay. "Could you use some help tidying up? Making it more secure?" I suggested. Her luminescent eyes brightened. "Would you? I've been managing, but there are parts of the ship I can't reach. Some systems I can't understand." Together, we delved into the bowels of the ship, clearing debris and resecuring loose panels. Sally was agile, her slight form slipping through narrow spaces with ease. She directed me to a series of circuit breakers, her knowledge of the ship's systems impressively detailed. "Where did you learn so much about this ship?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I've had nothing but time and shadows," she answered, her hands deft in their work. "And the ship's manuals helped." As we worked, Sally shared more about her homeworld, Tylexis, a planet rich in minerals but plagued by exploitation and war. The details painted a stark picture of a paradise lost, its beauty marred by greed and conflict. Her family had been among the first to flee, scattering across the stars in search of safety. "Our worlds are not so different," I mused, drawing a parallel to Earth's own tumultuous history. "We've seen our share of conflicts." "Yes, but you have a choice to return," Sally pointed out. "My home is beyond reach now." The day passed with us moving deeper into the ship. In the lower decks, we discovered an old control room, its screens dormant and coated in dust. Sally's excitement was palpable as she approached the consoles, her fingers tracing the controls with reverence. "Can you power it up?" I asked, unsure of what remained operational. With a few adjustments to the power distribution, the screens flickered to life, revealing diagnostic data and star maps. Sally's skill was undeniable as she navigated through the systems with a deft touch. "This could be our command center," she said, a spark of hope in her tone. "From here, we could monitor the entire ship, ensure it's secure." The idea resonated with me, the potential turning the derelict into a sanctuary, a project that felt increasingly meaningful. It wasn't just about salvaging anymore. It was about creating something new from the remnants of the past. "We'll need supplies, tools, maybe some parts from the market," I planned aloud, already calculating the logistics in my mind. Sally nodded, her resolve firming. "And I can set up defenses, camouflage the entry points. Make it invisible to unwelcome visitors." As night approached, the freighter felt less like a graveyard and more like a fortress. We parted ways in the evening, Sally retreating to her quarters and me back to mine, each step away from the ship reinforcing the bond that the unexpected encounter had forged. The ship, once a monument to my past, was evolving into a beacon of hope, not just for a lost alien, but perhaps for both of us. The next week brought an industrious blur, our days consumed by the rehabilitation of the freighter. We approached each task with a mechanic's precision and a historian's reverence, aware of the ship's past significance and hopeful for its future role. As I secured supply lines and gathered necessary materials from nearby systems, Sally transformed the interior into a labyrinth of security measures and hidden sanctuaries. One evening, as we were installing a new communications array, Sally paused, her hand hovering over a complex wiring harness. "Do you think it's safe to reach out?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of hope and fear. "To try and find others from my world?" The weight of her question hung in the air, charged with the potential risks of exposing her location to unknown entities. "We can set up secure channels, use encrypted signals. We'll control who hears us and who doesn't," I reassured her, though part of me shared her apprehension. With the communications array up and running, we spent nights scanning frequencies and sending out coded messages, each broadcast a beacon for Sally's scattered people. Responses were sparse and often fraught with static, but Saley remained undeterred, her determination a bright flame in the dim control room. One response, however, broke through clearer than the rest. A voice, strained but unmistakable, claiming to be from Tylexis. The connection was weak, the message fragmented, but it was enough to send waves of emotion across Saley's face. "They're out there," she whispered, a mix of relief and renewed fear in her eyes. As we prepared for potential reunions, an unexpected issue arose. The ship, long dormant, began to show signs of structural stress. Alarms we had not activated chimed in the night, warning of breaches and system failures. Our sanctuary seemed to be turning against us, its systems perhaps strained by the new energy coursing through its old veins. Saley and I donned our suits and ventured into the outer hull, the void of space a silent witness to our urgent repairs. We worked tethered together, the vastness of space a stark backdrop to our focused efforts. Each patch we applied, each bolt we tightened, felt like a direct defiance against the entropy threatening our newfound haven. Inside the ship, our relationship evolved with our collaboration. The long hours spent in confined spaces brought out stories of our lives, our losses, and our aspirations. Saley spoke of Tylexis with a bittersweet fondness, her tales filled with vivid descriptions of azure skies and towering crystals. In return, I shared my own stories of Earth, of green fields and bustling cities, of a family lineage steeped in starship engineering. Despite the burgeoning camaraderie and shared purpose, the shadow of Saley's past never fully receded. She would often retreat into herself after our communication sessions, her mood reflective and somber. I respected these moments, understanding the vast distances her heart had to travel, from hope to despair and back. One day, amid recalibrating the sensor arrays, we detected an anomaly, a ship, unregistered and moving with deliberate stealth, edging closer to our location. The realization hit us simultaneously: our broadcasts had reached more than just potential allies. We faced a new dilemma, whether to flee and abandon our efforts, or to stand and protect the sanctity of our refuge. As we debated our course of action, the ship's old defenses, now revived and enhanced by Saley's ingenious modifications, awaited our decision. We knew that whatever choice we made, the consequences would bind us together more tightly than ever, our fates intertwined with the steel and spirit of the freighter that had become our world. As the unidentified ship drew nearer, our makeshift command center became a crucible of tension and tactical planning. Saley's fingers danced over the holographic displays, her face lit by the soft glow of the screens, pulling up schematics and defensive protocols. We had to decide quickly. The approaching vessel was clearly equipped for stealth and possibly conflict. Can we mask our signature? Make it look like there's nothing here but debris? I proposed, scanning the readouts for any advantage we might exploit. Saley nodded, her expression grim. Partially. It will buy us time, but if they are determined, it won't keep them away forever. She initiated a sequence, and the ship's power dimmed, systems rerouting to create the illusion of an inert hulk drifting through space. In the shadowy silence that followed, our breaths seemed loud, each exhale a reminder of the fragility of our situation. We watched the monitors, tracking the ghostly outline of the approaching ship. It slowed, pausing in its advance, its intentions unreadable through the electronic haze. "Let's prepare for boarding," I said, the reality setting in. If they were hostile, we'd need to defend ourselves. I retrieved two old, yet functional, blasters from the storage, remnants of the ship's more turbulent past, and handed one to Saley. She weighed the blaster in her hand, a look of resolve stealing her features. If it comes to this, we stand our ground. We positioned ourselves near the primary airlock, the most likely entry point for any boarding attempt. The ship's internal sensors, now linked to our makeshift defenses, would alert us to any breach. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, each tick of the clock amplifying the suspense. Suddenly, the sensors pinged, a soft alert. They were close, perhaps evaluating their options. Then, without warning, the communication channel crackled to life, a voice cutting through the static. "Unidentified vessel, identify yourself and state your purpose," It demanded, authoritative and cold. Saley glanced at me, her finger poised above the ship-wide communication button. With a nod from me, she pressed it, her voice calm yet carrying an undeniable edge. "This is a private vessel. You are approaching without permission. State your intentions." The reply was a moment in coming, during which the possibilities raced through my mind. Then, just as suddenly as they had halted, the unknown ship began to withdraw, its retreat as silent and mysterious as its arrival. We watched in disbelief, the tension slowly ebbing from the room as the ship's outline faded from our sensors. Could they have been scared off just by our communication? I wondered aloud, the adrenaline slowly receding, leaving a trail of fatigue in its wake. Or they got what they came for, Saley suggested, her eyes not leaving the screen. Data maybe. They know we're here and what we might be capable of. We remained on high alert for hours, but the mysterious ship did not return. Eventually, we powered back up the systems we had cloaked, the ship coming to life around us with a series of hums and clicks. Our relief was palpable, yet the encounter left a residue of unease. We had defended our refuge this time, but the encounter was a stark reminder of our vulnerability. In the following days, we bolstered our defenses, adding layers of electronic countermeasures and enhancing the structural integrity of the hull. Saley took to modifying the sensor arrays to detect cloaked ships, a task she approached with a new fervor, perhaps driven by the haunting presence of the ship that had come so close. Our days returned to a semblance of routine, the ship slowly morphing from a mere hideout into a fortified bastion, reflective of both our fears and our hopes. Amidst this transformation, our conversations deepened, exploring not just the mechanics of survival, but the philosophies of existence, our dialogues as intricate as the wiring we threaded through the ship's aging frame. Each system we restored, each module we reinforced, was a testament to our resilience, a sign that amidst the vast and often indifferent cosmos, we had carved a space for ourselves, a small, defiant declaration of our presence. Our fortified sanctuary began to feel almost like a vessel of the old tales, a ship not just of refuge, but of purpose. The systems we had restored now hummed with the energy of potential, each pulse through the network a testament to our determination. Yet, the universe has a way of challenging such determinations, as if testing the mettle of those who dare to defy the randomness of cosmos. The incident with the unidentified ship had shifted something fundamental in our dynamic. It was no longer just about survival. It was about staking a claim, asserting a right to exist in this unforgiving expanse. Saley's modifications to the sensor arrays had turned sophisticated, her skill blending technology and intuition into a formidable shield. Amidst this backdrop of vigilance, a new signal broke through our routine monitoring. It was weak, fractured by distance and interference, but distinctively patterned, not the random noise of cosmic radiation or the usual chatter of spacefarers. Saley perked up at its anomalies, her expertise tuned to the subtleties of alien transmissions. "It's a distress signal," she declared after enhancing and isolating the frequencies. "But unlike any I've heard before. It's structured, deliberate." We traced the signal to a nearby sector, a region known for its nebulous clusters and magnetic storms, a graveyard for many unprepared ships. The decision to investigate was fraught with risk, yet turning a deaf ear to a potential call for help seemed antithetical to the very sanctuary we were striving to uphold. Preparations for the expedition were meticulous. We outfitted one of the smaller shuttles with enhanced shielding and redundant systems. Saley insisted on accompanying me, her argument underscored by the fact that her familiarity with alien technology could be indispensable. As we approached the coordinates, the nebula loomed before us like a tempestuous sea, its colors swirling in a ballet of cosmic forces. The shuttle's systems flickered under the strain of magnetic anomalies, but Saley's modifications held, slicing through the interference with a surgeon's precision. The source of the signal was a ship, or what remained of it, ensnared by the nebula's grasp. Its hull bore the scars of a severe encounter, whether with another vessel or the nebula's violent whims was unclear. We maneuvered closer, our shuttle's lights piercing the veil of dust and gas to reveal the ship's battered facade. Saley's analysis was swift. "There are life signs, faint but present. There in stasis, possibly automatically induced by the ship's emergency protocols. The rescue was delicate, our every move calculated to avoid exacerbating the damaged ship's precarious situation. We managed to extract the stasis pods, 3 in total, each containing an alien of a species neither of us recognized. Bipedal, their skin a tapestry of light blues and grays, features sharp and angular. Back aboard our freighter, we set up a makeshift medical bay. The aliens' physiology was unfamiliar, but Sally adapted our equipment to monitor their vital signs accurately, her deft hands and quick intellect bridging species and technology. As the first alien began to stir from stasis, its eyes fluttered open, revealing irises like twin nebulae swirling with stars and shadows. The moment of first contact was always profound, but this carried the weight of their apparent ordeal. "We found your signal. You're safe now," I communicated through the translator, hoping the message would soothe rather than startle. The alien spoke, its voice a soft echo in the room. "Thank you, but we are not the only ones in peril. Our ship was attacked, part of a larger conflict. Others may still be out there lost like we were." Their words expanded the scope of our mission exponentially. What started as a quest for personal sanctuary had now spiraled into a broader narrative of rescue and resistance. Each revelation from our new guests painted a picture of regional instability and skirmishes that rippled across this segment of space. With each rescued life, our purpose grew, transforming the once-abandoned freighter into a beacon of hope and a haven not just for Sally and myself, but for any who found themselves adrift in the dark. The revelation of a wider conflict took root within the once silent corridors of our ship, the implications as vast as the void outside. The newly rescued aliens, whom we learned to call the Eridani after their star system, brought with them not only their personal tales of survival but also the echoes of a struggle that spans several systems. This conflict, largely invisible to the major spacefaring lanes and powers, was a shadow war, its skirmishes and battles leaving behind debris both physical and emotional. As the Eridani regained their strength, our ship's role as a sanctuary became ever more pronounced. We held council in what had become the common room, a space lined with screens displaying star maps and current ship diagnostics. The Eridani, with their sharp features softening with gratitude, shared their knowledge of the factions involved in the conflict. "There are those who seek to dominate and extract, much like the troubles your companion has spoken of from her home," explained Morel, the eldest of the trio. Her voice carried the weight of experience, each word measured and deliberate. "They prey on the unaligned and unprotected, stripping resources and leaving barren husks." Sally listened intently, her eyes occasionally meeting mine, a silent communication of her rising commitment to a cause that had become ours. It was no longer a matter of if we would intervene, but how. Our ship, once a derelict relic, was quickly becoming a command center for operations that could potentially alter the balance of power in this fringe theater of war. The discussions led to a plan of action. We would use the freighter as a mobile base, leveraging its newly upgraded systems to cloak our movements. We aimed to gather more survivors, rally those displaced by the conflict, and perhaps even take a stand against the aggressors if we could muster enough support. Preparations began in earnest. Sally and I, along with our Eridani allies, worked to enhance the ship's offensive and defensive capabilities. Sally's knack for technology turned our vessel into a ghost in the void, nearly undetectable unless one knew exactly where to look. Meanwhile, I focused on the weaponry, retrofitting old systems and integrating Eridani technology, which was surprisingly compatible with our own. The freighter buzzed with activity, the air filled with the scent of solder and the hum of busy circuits. Every room and passageway bristled with purpose, the crew, though small, driven by a shared resolve to make a difference. We drilled evacuation and defense scenarios, not just to prepare for potential conflict but to forge our disparate group into a coherent unit. During this bustling period, Mirelle approached me one quiet night, her expression thoughtful. "You have given us more than just shelter," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the dimly lit corridor. "You have given us hope, a rare commodity in these times." Her words struck a chord, reminding me of the enormity of our undertaking. "We are all looking for hope, I think," I replied. "Sometimes it's all that can guide us through the darkness." The Eridani nodded, her gaze lifting to the stars visible through the nearby porthole. "And sometimes, it is enough to inspire others to join, to build a force that can change the course of events." Her prediction proved prescient. As we moved from system to system, our calls for aid and sanctuary were answered by more than just the desperate. Other ships, small fleets even, began to rally under our banner. Each group brought their own strengths, their own stories of survival and resistance. Our ship, the once abandoned freighter, had transformed into the heart of a growing alliance, a testament to the power of shared goals and mutual protection. This coalition was not just a response to aggression but a movement, a declaration that the fringes of space would not fall quietly to tyranny or exploitation. With each new addition to our cause, our capacity to intervene and influence grew, setting the stage for what would soon become a significant counteroffensive aimed at restoring balance and ensuring safety for the systems under threat. The weight of leadership rested heavily on our shoulders, yet the light of distant stars and the fires of newfound resolve illuminated our path forward. As our coalition grew, so too did the complexity of our operations. Our meetings, once held in the cramped quarters of our command center, spilled over into virtual spaces, holograms flickering with the faces of commanders from a dozen different sectors. Each leader brought not only their ships and their warriors but also their political complexities and histories of grievances, a mosaic of potential and volatility. In these sessions, Saley emerged as more than just a technician or a survivor. She became a diplomat, her intuitive grasp of language and nuance bridging species and soothing old rivalries. Her voice, once soft and uncertain, now carried a quiet authority that even the most seasoned leaders respected. "The strength of our alliance lies not just in our ships and weapons," she would often say, "but in our shared vision of a space where all can navigate freely, without fear." Her words, imbued with the conviction of her own experiences, resonated deeply, knitting together the varied threads of our growing armada. Meanwhile, I delved into the strategic aspects, planning routes and missions that leveraged our collective capabilities. The Eridani, with their advanced understanding of astrogation and stealth technologies, proved invaluable, guiding our fleet through sectors where conventional wisdom would advise caution. Our first major operation was a rescue mission. Intel suggested that a civilian convoy had been trapped by a rogue faction in the Nebulan Belt, a notorious pirate stronghold. The plan was risky. The belt was a labyrinth of gas clouds and asteroid debris, a haven for those who preferred shadows. But the potential to save lives and strike a blow against the oppressors propelled us forward. As our fleet approached, cloaked and silent as the void itself, our sensors picked up the distress signals, now weak and desperate. The pirates, caught off guard, scrambled to mount a defense, but they were unprepared for our numbers and our fury. The battle was swift, our forces precise and overwhelming. As we swept through their ranks, it became clear that our collective might was greater than any single faction had anticipated. After the skirmish, as we tended to the rescued and repaired minor damages, a new reality settled over our leaders. This victory, though small in the grand scheme, was a tangible proof of our potential. Energized, our strategy meetings grew more ambitious, targeting key outposts and supply lines that fed the rogue faction's power. But with success came increased scrutiny. Our movements, once mere whispers in the vast chorus of galactic traffic, now drew the eyes of larger powers, those whose interests lay in maintaining the status quo of chaos and control. Diplomatic channels buzzed with warnings and veiled threats, a clear indication that our efforts to stabilize the region were not going unnoticed. Saley and I spent long hours poring over every message and report, weighing our diplomatic options. "We need to be smart," she cautioned one evening, her eyes weary but determined. "If we push too hard, too fast, we might find ourselves facing an enemy we're not prepared to fight." Her words were prophetic. Within days, our scouts reported a massive buildup of enemy forces at the edge of the Trillian Void, a strategic choke point that could potentially cut our fleet off from vital supply lines. The challenge was clear, and the stakes were higher than ever. As we rallied our forces, I saw the resolve in every crew member's eyes, a reflection of our own determination. We were no longer just a band of survivors and rebels. We had become a symbol of hope and resistance. Our next move would define not just the future of our coalition but potentially the balance of power in the region. The weight of command was heavy, but the camaraderie and shared purpose that buoyed us made the burden bearable. As we prepared for what might be our defining confrontation, Saley stood beside me, her presence a constant reminder of how far we had come and what we were fighting for. Together, we looked out at the assembled fleet, a myriad of ships against the backdrop of stars, ready to carve a path toward a better future, one skirmish at a time. The Trillian Void, a name that once conjured images of desolate beauty and the serene quiet of deep space, had transformed into a staging ground for what would be our most crucial engagement yet. The strategic significance of the Void was not lost on any who navigated its peripheries. It was a gateway, a conduit between regions that could control the flow of trade and military might with equal efficacy. In the dim light of the command center, our planning sessions grew longer, maps and models of the regions spread out before us like the intricate pieces of a high-stakes chess game. The Eridani, their knowledge of the region's anomalies invaluable, suggested a series of feints and diversions that could disorient the amassed enemy forces, providing us with a critical advantage. We strike fast, hit them before they consolidate their position, I directed, pointing to the clusters of enemy activity. Use the Void's magnetic fields to mask our approach. It's risky, but it's covered. We need to close the distance undetected. Saley coordinated with the ship captains, her calm demeanor balancing the rising tension as the fleet prepared for the maneuver. Each ship was briefed, their crews ready, their systems tuned to the unique conditions of the Void. It was a gambit that relied as much on precision as it did on the courage of those who piloted the ships through one of space's most treacherous landscapes. As the fleet moved into position, cloaked by the Void's natural distortions, a sense of collective breath-holding permeated the ship. On my command, the fleet surged forward, the Void around us alive with unseen currents that tugged at the hulls of our ships like ghostly hands. The initial clash was jarring, the sudden eruption of energy weapons and defensive fields tearing through the quiet of the Void. Our ships, nimble and well-coordinated, danced through the enemy formations, their fire disciplined yet devastating. The enemy, caught off guard by our audacity, scrambled to mount an effective response. In the thick of battle, Saley remained a nexus of calm, her voice a steady presence over the comms as she relayed information and commands. Portside Group, tighten your arc main squadron, focus fire on their flagship's shields, she instructed, her words slicing through the chaos with surgical precision. The battle raged, a maelstrom of light and shadow, until the enemy's lines began to falter. Their flagship, a massive cruiser that had been a looming threat in our calculations, suffered a critical hit to its propulsion systems, its silhouette listing against the backdrop of swirling cosmic dust. Seizing the opportunity, our forces pressed the advantage, overwhelming the now leaderless enemy ships. As the last of their fighters retreated, a cheer broke out across the comms, a release of tension and triumphant relief that echoed through the corridors of our own ship. In the aftermath, as we assessed the damage and tended to the wounded, the reality of our victory began to sink in. We had not just won a battle, we had secured a strategic position that would change the dynamics of power in the region. The Void, once a symbol of isolation, had become a beacon of our resilience and determination. Yet, even as we celebrated, the cost of our victory was palpable. Casualties, both human and material, had been higher than expected. Each loss was felt deeply, the joy of our success tempered by the grief for fallen comrades. In those moments, the stark nature of our struggle was laid bare, the lines between survival and sacrifice blurred. As the fleet regrouped and repairs began, Saley and I stood at the viewport, looking out at the fleet, now less a collection of ships and more a testament to what unified purpose could achieve. Our eyes met, and without words, we understood that our journey had reached a new phase. With this victory, we had not just altered the course of a battle but had begun to forge a new path for all those who called the Fringe their home. The days that followed were filled with plans for consolidation and outreach, for transforming our hard-won position into a durable stronghold. Our alliance, tested in battle, was now stronger, a new force to be reckoned with in the ever-shifting tapestry of galactic politics. The victory at the Trillian Void marked a turning point, sending ripples across the neighboring systems. News of our success spread, bolstering the spirits of those under the thumb of oppression and drawing the attention of other factions, whose interests had been disrupted by the shift in power. Among these were entities who, until now, had remained neutral or obscured by their own non-committal stances. In our command center, now brimming with data streams and strategic communications, Saley and I reviewed offers of alliances and propositions for support. Each message was dissected, its words weighed for sincerity and strategic value. "We need to be careful," Saley cautioned, her finger pausing over a particularly generous offer from a system known for its mercantile prowess. "Some of these factions didn't consider us allies until we became convenient." Her insight was sharp, a reminder of the complexities of our newfound position. Our decisions carried weight, each alliance a thread in the delicate fabric of our burgeoning sector influence. We opted for cautious engagement, extending feelers and setting conditions that ensured mutual benefit without overcommitting our resources. During this period of diplomatic maneuvering, an unexpected visitor arrived at our coordinates. A lone ship, sleek and well-armed, bearing the emblems of the Galactic Core, a coalition of powerful planets known for their regulatory influence over trade routes and law enforcement. The arrival of such a representative was unprecedented, a clear indication that our actions had echoed far beyond our immediate vicinity. The envoy, a seasoned diplomat named Theron, was escorted to our conference room, where the stark utilitarian decor contrasted with his immaculate uniform. "Your achievements have been impressive," he began, his tone measured, his gaze sharp. "The Corps sees great potential in formalizing relations with your alliance." His proposal was tempting, support in the form of advanced technology and military assets, in exchange for our cooperation in stabilizing the region under the Corps' guidelines. The offer hinted at significant benefits, but also at a loss of the autonomy we had fought so hard to achieve. "We appreciate the Corps' recognition," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "But our primary commitment is to the freedom and safety of the sectors we protect. How does the Corps view our approach to self-determination?" Theron's response was diplomatic, yet it revealed the underlying tension between our ideals and the Corps' policies. "There is room for negotiation," he conceded, "but the Corps prefers a certain order to be maintained." After he departed, Saley and I convened a meeting with our top advisors and ship captains. The room was charged with a mix of excitement and wariness, the weight of our decision palpable in the air. "This is a crossroads for us," I stated, looking around at the assembled faces. "Do we align with the Corps, gaining immediate strength but possibly compromising our principles? Or do we continue on our current path, slower perhaps, but on our own terms?" The debate was intense, opinions divided. Some saw the Corps' offer as a necessary step towards legitimacy and enhanced capability, while others feared it was a velvet glove over an iron fist, a subtle subjugation of our independence. In the end, we decided to proceed with caution, drafting a response that proposed a trial collaboration on specific operations, a test of compatibility and intentions. This middle path was our attempt to navigate the treacherous waters of galactic politics without losing the essence of what we had built. As the days turned into weeks, our engagement with the Corps and other factions deepened, each interaction a dance of diplomacy and strategy. We fortified our positions, expanded our reach, and solidified our reputation as a formidable entity in the region. Yet, beneath the surface of these successes, the fundamental questions remained. How much of our original vision would we retain as we grew in power? And what compromises, if any, would prove too great as we forged ahead in our quest to reshape the star map according to our ideals? These questions lingered, unresolved, as we steered our alliance into uncharted territories, the stars above silent witnesses to our unfolding saga. As our alliance matured and expanded its influence, the landscape of regional politics became increasingly intricate. Each maneuver on the galactic chessboard required foresight and finesse, our every action scrutinized not just by our allies but also by potential adversaries lying in wait. The trial collaborations with the Galactic Core had yielded mixed results, successes that bolstered our capabilities, coupled with compromises that occasionally chafed against our foundational principles. In the quiet moments aboard our command ship, Saley and I would often reflect on the path we had charted. The control room, with its panoramic views of the cosmos, served as a reminder of the vastness of our responsibilities and the myriad lives that depended on our decisions. "Do you ever wonder if we're changing?" Saley mused one evening, her gaze fixed on the nebulae painting the void with vibrant hues, "or if it's the universe that's changing us?" Her question echoed in my mind, a resonant frequency that matched the hum of the ship. "Perhaps it's both," I replied. "We adapt, evolve, and sometimes we transform. But so does the universe around us, in response to our actions and the actions of countless others." The Alliance's growing pains were felt most acutely in the negotiations with the Core. The diplomatic exchanges, once hopeful, had grown increasingly tense, the Core's insistence on certain concessions testing our resolve to maintain autonomy. It became clear that while the Core valued our strength, they also sought to temper it, to mold it into a form that better fit their vision of galactic order. This tension came to a head during a critical summit held on Neutral Station, a sprawling spaceport that served as common ground for diplomatic dialogues. Representatives from various factions gathered, their allegiances as varied as the stars in the sky. Theron was there, his demeanor cordial but his eyes sharp, watching our every move. "We recognize the strides your alliance has made in stabilizing the region," Theron began, his voice carrying across the crowded hall. "However, continued support from the Core is contingent upon your agreement to integrate more fully with our operational protocols and oversight." The proposal was a gilded cage, and it sparked a fierce debate among our ranks. To refuse might mean jeopardizing the support we had come to rely on. To accept could mean a gradual erosion of the freedoms we had fought so ardently to protect. Our response was crafted from a place of unity and strength, tempered by the wisdom we had accumulated through countless trials. "We propose a different path," I announced, standing before the assembly with Saley by my side. "One where our sovereignty is respected as we work collaboratively, but without overarching oversight that undermines our autonomy." The silence that followed was palpable, the assembly processing the implications of our stance. After what seemed like an eternity, Theron nodded slowly. "Your terms will require considerable discussion. We will convene with our council and return with a response." As the summit concluded, the diversity of reactions among the attendees reflected the complexity of our position. Some viewed our stance as a beacon of hope for smaller factions seeking to maintain their independence. Others saw it as a naive gamble, a provocation that could lead to isolation or conflict. Back on our ship, as we debriefed with our advisors, the weight of our decision was counterbalanced by a collective resolve. We had chosen a path that stayed true to our principles, even in the face of immense pressure. It was a declaration of our intention to shape not just our destiny but also to influence the broader currents of galactic affairs. As our ships navigated away from Neutral Station, the stars seemed to align in new patterns, the constellations of power and diplomacy shifting subtly yet significantly. Our course was set, our resolve tested but firm, as we continued to navigate the complex expanse of space politics. The future was uncertain, a tapestry of possibilities that could unfold in myriad ways. But one thing was clear, our journey, driven by a desire for peace and sovereignty, would leave indelible marks on the galaxy, our legacy defined not just by the battles we fought but by the ideals we upheld. And in this vast, ever-changing universe, we would continue to stand as a testament to the power of unity and determination, our eyes forever fixed on the horizons of tomorrow.